I'm Velva, and this is day 12 of our 21 days of prayer and fasting. Okay, my topic is how do we worship through trusting God? Trusting God is not as easy when we face storms of life, just as worshiping God is not as easy when we face those same storms. Our reaction, regardless of the circumstances that we can see in our very limited view, will be to fall on the ground in worship to the only one who can deliver us out of all of it. This is what Job did when everything that he had was taken away from him: his children, his oxen, sheep, camels, and all of his servants. What did he do? He tore his clothes, shaved his head, and fell down and worshiped God. The most important time to worship God is when our heart is breaking. Worship is the weapon that cuts through the darkest of circumstances to speak to our spirit and to remind us of God's truth and power over our situation. Many of us don't even think of worship as a weapon. Instead, we think of it as music that sets the atmosphere for a church. But the fact is that we are all wielding a very dangerous and powerful weapon that destroys the plans of our enemy. Praise and worship silences the enemy. Our worship will take our place in the battle. It will stand between us and the bad situation, just like a wall. Worship will lift you out of your current situation into a place of power in Him. There are several things that using worship as a weapon does. Number one, it changes our focus. When we set our attention on worship, we begin to remember who God is in our lives and where He has brought us from. Number two, worship changes our circumstances because we are singing, speaking, sometimes shouting God's word and His truth over the lies of the enemy. And number three, worship changes our enemy's position. When we worship God, we invite His presence into the room and into our circumstances. And when God is present, Satan has no choice but to flee. And lastly, worship changes those around you. A powerful example of this is in Acts 16, where Paul and Silas were in prison for preaching God's word. In verses 25 to 26, it says that they were praying and singing hymns to God. Because of this, the jailer and his entire family, and possibly many of the prisoners, were saved. Paul and Silas worshiped God in the most dire of circumstances. When we worship, we get refreshed, refueled, we find unspeakable joy and indescribable peace. We discover the breakthrough strength of God, which helped us walk in His truth, live in His presence, and see the God of the entire universe fight our battles for us. Wow, that is amazing. Thank you for listening, Mount Perrin. We love you.